Hello, and welcome back to Super English Talks. This is the channel where we grow together, not just in English, but in the way we think, live, and communicate. I'm really happy you're here today because we're going to talk about something that affects almost everyone, especially people who want to improve, make progress, and use their time well. Let me start with a question. Are you really being productive? Or are you just busy all the time? At first, those two words, productive and busy, might sound almost the same. Both mean you're doing things, completing tasks, staying active. But if we slow down and look carefully, we'll see that they're actually very different. Let's think about an ordinary day. You wake up, maybe grab your phone right away. You check messages, scroll through notifications, maybe rush through breakfast or skip it completely. Then you jump into work, study, errands, or family responsibilities. You're answering emails, replying to texts, attending meetings, trying to keep up with everything. All day long, you're in motion, doing. And by the time the day ends, you're completely exhausted. But here's the strange part. Even after all that activity, you might feel like you didn't really move forward. You did a lot, but did any of it actually matter? That's what I mean when I say, productivity without purpose is just busyness. It's like running on a treadmill. You move a lot, you sweat, your heart races, but you stay in the same place. There's action, but no direction. And when we live like that for too long, it wears us out, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally too. Now, let's look at how we talk about being busy. We often say things like, I'm so busy. I'm swamped. Or, I've got a million things to do. These phrases don't just describe our schedule, they also reveal our mindset. We've learned to believe that our value comes from how much we do, not from how meaningful what we do actually is. But what if that idea is wrong? What if true productivity isn't about doing more, but about doing what truly matters? Maybe real productivity means choosing with intention, choosing the actions, projects, and relationships that actually move us closer to the life we want. In this episode, we're going to explore that idea more deeply. We'll talk about how to live and work with more intention. We'll look at the difference between chasing activity and choosing purpose. And we'll talk about what it means to find direction, not just movement. This isn't about guilt or pressure. It's not about being perfect or super organized. It's simply about awareness, about paying attention to what you're doing and why you're doing it. So, before we go any further, take a moment. Pause. Ask yourself honestly, am I building a life I believe in or just keeping myself busy? There's no need for judgment. We've all been there. The goal is not to criticize yourself, but to begin to see more clearly, to take one small step toward living with clarity instead of clutter. In the next few parts of this episode, we'll explore how we got so addicted to being busy, why it feels so hard to slow down, and what we can do to shift our focus toward something deeper, something that feels peaceful, purposeful, and sustainable. Because the truth is, we live in a time when slowing down can almost feel wrong. If someone says, I'm taking it easy, people often look surprised, maybe even a little judgmental. It's as if relaxing means you're lazy or unmotivated. We've started to believe that constant motion equals success, that the busier we are, the more important we must be. And if we're not overwhelmed, we must not be trying hard enough. But let's stop and think about that idea for a moment. Is that really true? Is a full schedule the same as a full life? Or are we confusing motion with meaning? That's what we're going to unpack together today here on Super English Talks. Let's begin. The myth of constant motion, simplified and expanded version. Because if we're honest, many of us live in what could be called a culture of urgency, a world where everything feels like it has to be done right now. It's a place where more almost always seems better. More work, more goals, more movement. We're always chasing something, chasing deadlines, chasing approval, chasing that quick feeling of satisfaction when we cross another task off the list. And yet, how often have you finished a long, exhausting day and thought, I did so much today, but did I actually do anything that truly mattered? That's what I call the myth of constant motion, the belief that if we're moving, thinking, or doing something all the time, then we must be making progress. But the truth is, motion by itself doesn't always mean growth. Think of it like this. Imagine a car stuck in the mud. The driver keeps pressing the gas pedal, the wheels spin faster and faster, mud flies everywhere, the engine roars, but the car doesn't move an inch. It's working hard, but not going anywhere. That's where the English idiom, spinning your wheels, comes from. And it's a perfect picture of what many people experience every single day. They're busy, exhausted, and overscheduled, but somehow stuck. And that kind of constant motion doesn't energize you. It drains you. People start to run on empty, another idiom that means living without energy, without rest, still pushing forward even when your body and mind are begging for a break. A day might look something like this. You wake up already tired. You grab a coffee because you need the energy. You rush to a meeting, answer emails while eating lunch, multitask all afternoon, scroll through social media during dinner, and finally collapse into bed only to repeat the exact same cycle tomorrow. And maybe you even feel guilty if you stop for a moment. There's that quiet voice inside whispering, shouldn't you be doing something right now? Shouldn't you be more productive? But where does that voice come from? A lot of it is psychological. We've been trained, often without realizing it, to believe that our worth depends on our output. The more we achieve, the more valuable we think we are. But that belief creates a dangerous cycle. We start to burn the candle at both ends. That means we use up our energy from morning until night, giving ourselves no time to rest, to think, or to recharge. And when you live like that for long enough, burnout isn't just possible, it's guaranteed. There's also a strong cultural side to the story. In many places, especially big cities or competitive industries, being busy is seen as a status symbol. People wear their busyness like a badge of honor. You've probably heard conversations like this. How have you been? Oh, so busy. And it's said almost proudly, as if being busy proves that your life is full, important, and successful. But if we look closely, we can see a difference, a big one, between being busy and being fulfilled, between being active and being aligned. The problem with constant motion is that it leaves no room for intentionality. When every minute of your day is filled with tasks, meetings, and messages, there's almost no space left to ask yourself the deeper questions. Why am I doing this? Where is all this effort leading? Does this still make sense for the kind of life I want to build? But often, we don't ask those questions, or we're afraid to. Because what if we realize that we've been working so hard for something we no longer even believe in? And that's the real trap. Motion without direction isn't just tiring, it's blinding. It keeps us focused on the next task, the next appointment, the next achievement, until we lose sight of the bigger picture. You might still appear successful on the outside, meeting expectations, hitting targets, staying on top of everything, but inside, something feels empty. Like you're moving fast, but not really arriving anywhere. And often, what's missing is purpose. Now, this doesn't mean that ambition or hard work are bad. Not at all. Productivity can be something beautiful when it's connected to meaning. When your actions come from your values, not just from momentum. But if you never stop to look at the map, to ask where you're going and why, you could spend your whole life on autopilot. Always racing, but never truly arriving. So maybe the real question isn't, how busy are you? Maybe it's, is your busyness bringing you closer to what matters, or just keeping you distracted? It's not an easy question. And there's no single answer that works for everyone. But even asking it, even quietly, in the back of your mind, can start to change things. It opens the door to a new kind of productivity. One that's rooted in clarity, not chaos. One that's driven by purpose, not pressure. And that's exactly where we'll go next, into a deeper look at what purpose really means and how it can transform the way we think about work, time, and even our sense of self. What are we aiming for? Simplified and expanded version. So far, we've talked about the dangers of constant motion, how easy it is to confuse being busy with making progress. But now, we reach a deeper and even more important question. If busyness isn't the goal, then what is? What are we actually working toward? And this is where we meet a word that can feel both exciting and intimidating at the same time: purpose. Now, purpose is one of those words we hear everywhere. It shows up in self-help books, motivational speeches, company mission statements. It's become a kind of buzzword. But even though people talk about it all the time, it's still not easy to define. What does it really mean to live with purpose? Do you have to quit your job and follow your true calling? Do you have to change the world, start a movement, or write a best-selling book? Not necessarily. One of the biggest misunderstandings about purpose is that it has to be something huge and impressive, something that makes other people say, wow. But in truth, purpose is often quiet. It's personal. It's inward-facing. At its heart, purpose is about alignment, the connection between what you do and what you truly value. It's not just about what you're doing, but why you're doing it. Think of purpose as a compass. It doesn't just create movement, it gives you direction. When you're in touch with your purpose, even small actions can feel meaningful. Simple things like washing the dishes, sending an email, or studying a new language can all carry a quiet sense of significance if they're connected to something deeper. But without that connection, even your biggest accomplishments can feel strangely empty. So, how do we begin to define our own purpose? Not the one society hands us, not the one we inherit from parents, teachers, or culture, but the one that truly belongs to us. This is where things get personal. For some people, purpose comes from helping others, maybe through teaching, volunteering, or community work. For others, it's found in family, creativity, problem-solving, or simply learning and growing. There's no single right answer. The only real question is, does it feel meaningful to you? And here's something important to remember: your purpose doesn't have to stay the same forever. It can change. It should change. We are not static beings. Our priorities shift. Our circumstances evolve. And so do our values. What mattered deeply to you 5 years ago might not feel relevant today, and that's perfectly okay. Purpose isn't a fixed destination you arrive at once and for all. It's more like a guiding thread, something you follow, not something you conquer. But here's the challenge. Many of us move through life without ever pausing to ask what our own guiding thread really is. We follow paths that were laid out for us: career paths, school systems, cultural expectations. We chase goals because we're supposed to, or because they look respectable, or simply because everyone else seems to be doing the same thing. And then, somewhere along the way, we start to feel disconnected, even if, on paper, everything looks great. We might have achievements, success, recognition, yet something inside still feels off. That's why it's so important to step back and ask, who's defining success for me? Whose voice am I listening to, my own or someone else's? This brings us to a powerful idea: internal motivation. Internal motivation is the drive that comes from within, not from outside pressure. When your motivation is internal, your energy feels different. You're not just doing things to check a box, please others, or prove a point. You're doing them because they feel right, because they connect to who you are and what you care about. That feeling, that quiet, steady sense of, yes, this matters to me, is often what purpose sounds like. It's not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just a gentle voice, a small sense of rightness that lives inside you. Of course, this kind of reflection isn't always easy. We live in a world that constantly encourages comparison, competition, and distraction. But that's exactly why self-reflection is so necessary. If we don't define our own purpose, someone else will define it for us. And when that happens, we can end up working hard, meeting goals, even being admired, but still feeling lost. Purpose doesn't promise happiness every single day, but it does offer something even more valuable: direction. It gives you a reason to keep going, even when things are hard. It helps you make better decisions, stay resilient through challenges, and feel more connected to the life you're building. And if you're an English learner, this idea might be even more meaningful. Because learning a new language, especially at an advanced level, isn't just about grammar or vocabulary. It's about learning a new way to think, to express yourself, to see the world. When you connect your language learning to your personal why, your reason for learning, it stops being just another task. It becomes a journey of growth, identity, and purpose. The productivity trap, simplified and expanded version. It's about voice. Your voice. Being able to express what truly matters to you in your own words with honesty, confidence, and clarity. That, too, is part of living with purpose. So before we go further, I want to leave you with a gentle question, not something to answer right away, but something to carry with you for a while. When was the last time you asked yourself what really matters to you? Not what matters to your boss, your parents, your friends, or society, but you. Not what you think should matter, but what actually does. What makes you feel alive? What brings you peace? What makes you feel most like yourself? And if you haven't asked those questions in a long time, or maybe ever, that's completely okay. There's no deadline. There's no pressure. Just an invitation. Because the more honest we become about what we truly value, the more intentional we can be in how we live, how we work, and even how we learn. The productivity trap, metrics, milestones, and misalignment. Now let's talk about what happens when productivity loses its connection to purpose. I call this the productivity trap. It's that strange situation where someone looks completely successful on the outside, but feels totally lost on the inside. Maybe you've met someone like that, or maybe, at some point, you've been that person. They've checked every box. They've earned the degree, landed the job, hit the financial goals, built the resume. From the outside, everything looks perfect, maybe even admirable. But beneath the surface, there's a quiet emptiness. A sense that something doesn't quite add up. That's the productivity trap, the moment when achievement becomes disconnected from meaning. It's when you're doing everything right by society's standards, you're productive, efficient, successful, but deep down, you feel an uncomfortable question rising. Why doesn't this feel as fulfilling as I thought it would? Often, the answer lies in something called misaligned success. That's when your external progress, the titles, numbers, and achievements, doesn't match your internal values. In other words, you're climbing the ladder, but the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. And the higher you climb, the more disconnected you feel. This kind of misalignment doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, little by little, through small compromises. You say yes when you mean no. You prioritize what looks good over what feels right. You stay busy instead of being honest with yourself. Let's look at a few examples. Imagine a university student who's always been at the top of the class. They get straight A's, win awards, and make their professors proud. But privately, they feel anxious, exhausted, and unsure if they even like what they're studying. Or picture a young professional working at a prestigious company. They have a great salary, an impressive title, and a career that others admire. But every morning, they wake up with a heavy feeling of dread, that quiet thought of, is this really what I want my life to be? These people aren't lazy. They're dedicated. They're capable. But they're caught in a loop of chasing metrics, always pushing toward the next number, the next target, the next level, without pausing to ask if those goals still make sense. And in our modern world, this pressure is everywhere. We measure ourselves constantly through grades, salaries, followers, deadlines, performance reviews. Every signal around us says, do more, be more, prove more. Over time, we internalize those signals until they become part of how we see ourselves. We start to believe that our worth depends on how much we accomplish. And when that happens, something dangerous starts to happen inside. We lose touch with our inner compass. We stop checking in with ourselves. We move faster and faster, but with less and less direction. We work harder. We get busier. We become more reactive, just trying to keep up, rather than consciously choosing where we're going. And that's when emotional burnout begins to appear. Not just physical exhaustion, but a deep, inner tiredness, a sense of emotional emptiness, of disconnection from your own life. It's that feeling of running out of fuel, even though you're still pressing forward. You wake up tired, you go to bed restless, and no amount of achievement seems to fill the gap. The productivity trap tricks us into believing that progress always equals purpose. But it doesn't. Real progress only exists when it's guided by meaning. So before you chase the next goal, pause and ask yourself, is this success aligned with who I am, or just what I've been told I should want? That single question, simple but honest, can begin to shift everything. The productivity trap, continued, simplified, and expanded version. Burnout doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. It shows up as numbness, a loss of excitement, or that small inner voice that whispers, "What's the point?" And often, people don't even realize they're burned out because on the surface, everything still looks fine. They're showing up to work, delivering results, smiling when they're supposed to. But inside, they're running on empty. What makes this trap even more dangerous is how easy it is to explain it away. We tell ourselves stories like, "I'm just tired. It's just a busy season. I'll rest once I finish this project. I just need to reach that next milestone, that next promotion, that next certification, and then I'll finally feel fulfilled." But here's the difficult truth. If your sense of purpose isn't part of the journey, it usually won't magically appear at the destination. That feeling of deep satisfaction we're chasing doesn't come from numbers, titles, or external success. It comes from meaning. And meaning comes from alignment, from knowing that what you're doing connects to who you are and what you truly care about. Now, none of this means that we should abandon our goals or stop striving for growth. Goals matter. Progress matters. Achievement can be wonderful when it's rooted in your own values, not just in external expectations. This is where language gives us an interesting clue. Notice how we often describe success with images of height. Climbing the ladder. Reaching the top. Making it big. But what if, instead of focusing on height, we focused on depth? What if success was measured not by how high we climb, but by how deeply we're connected to what we do? So maybe pause for a moment and ask yourself, are the goals you're working toward truly yours, or are they someone else's? Are you building a life that reflects your values, or just a resume that reflects your effort? There's no judgment here. We all fall into this trap at different times. What matters most is noticing it. Because the moment you recognize misalignment, you create the possibility for change. And that change doesn't have to be dramatic or sudden. It can begin gently, with awareness, with small choices, with the decision to move toward a kind of productivity that actually feels meaningful. A way of living and working where you're not just chasing outcomes, but also cultivating connection. Where the path matters just as much as the prize. Listening to your inner compass. In our fast-paced world, full of notifications, deadlines, and endless to-do lists, it's easy to lose touch with something essential, our inner compass. That quiet, guiding voice inside us often gets drowned out by the noise of everyday life. But learning to listen to it is one of the most important steps in reconnecting with purpose. So, what does it actually mean to listen to your inner compass? At its core, it means becoming more self-aware. It means paying attention to your thoughts, emotions, and values rather than just reacting to outside demands or distractions. This might sound simple, but it takes practice and patience. It requires a willingness to slow down, to create moments of stillness for reflection and introspection. Introspection means looking inward, examining your own thoughts and feelings. It's like holding up a mirror to your inner world. And yes, it can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to moving quickly from one task to the next. But it's within that quiet space that we begin to hear ourselves again. One of the most powerful tools for developing self-awareness is journaling. You've probably heard of it, writing down your thoughts, feelings, and reflections. But journaling isn't just about keeping a diary. It's about creating a conversation with yourself. When you write, it's like opening a window into your own mind. You start to notice patterns, the worries that repeat, the hopes that keep returning, the doubts that quietly shape your choices. You begin to see not only what you're feeling, but why. Putting your thoughts on paper allows your inner voice to express itself freely, honestly, and without judgment. And over time, that simple act of writing can help you reconnect with your inner compass, that small, steady voice that already knows what matters most. Listening to your inner compass continued. Journaling is one powerful way to slow down the mental chatter and listen more clearly to what's really going on inside. But it's not the only way. Some people find that quiet moments of stillness are even more helpful, moments when they can simply sit with their thoughts, breathe deeply, and observe their inner landscape. This is the essence of mindfulness, paying attention on purpose to the present moment without trying to change it. Mindfulness isn't about emptying your mind or forcing yourself to feel calm. It's about becoming a gentle, curious observer of your inner world, noticing your thoughts and feelings as they arise, without judgment. It's a practice that builds a bridge between your busy outer life and your calm inner self. Why does this matter so much? Because without awareness, our minds can run on autopilot. We start to believe certain ideas about ourselves or our lives that quietly limit our growth. Psychologists call these limiting beliefs thoughts like, "I'm not good enough. I have to work harder to prove my worth. I don't deserve to rest." These beliefs can keep us stuck in unhelpful patterns, even when they no longer serve our well-being or our goals. But by cultivating awareness, through journaling, mindfulness, or simple reflection, you start to see these internal stories for what they are. You can ask, is this belief really true? Is it exaggerated? Or is it completely false? That awareness is incredibly freeing. It gives you the power to challenge limiting beliefs and replace them with more empowering ones. For example, imagine shifting from, "I must always be busy to matter," to, "My value is not defined by my productivity." That single shift in mindset can be deeply transformative. This process of listening to your inner compass also helps you reconnect with your values, the deep principles that guide your choices and give your life meaning. When your actions are aligned with your values, even difficult tasks feel worthwhile because they contribute to something bigger than short-term results or external approval. Now, here's a question worth pausing on. When was the last time you truly listened to your inner voice? Not your notifications. Not the constant pings and buzzes that pull your attention outward. But that quiet voice inside, the one that knows what you need, what you feel, and what really matters to you. It sounds simple, but it's not always easy to answer. For many of us, it might have been months or even years since we last truly listened. Maybe it was before life got so busy, before deadlines began to take priority over desires. But it's never too late to start again. Every time you pause and check in with yourself, you're strengthening a powerful habit, the habit of intentionality. You're creating space to act from clarity instead of compulsion. And here's something important to remember. Listening to your inner compass doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities or giving up productivity. It means bringing awareness to your choices, making sure your actions come from a place of meaning, not just momentum. It's about asking yourself small but powerful questions like, is this task aligned with my goals? Am I saying yes because I want to or because I feel pressured? What would feel right in this moment? These questions don't always have quick answers, but asking them regularly trains your mind to focus on what truly matters. So as you move through your day, whether you're studying, working, or simply managing life, try to create small moments for this kind of inner listening. Maybe it's 5 quiet minutes in the morning with your journal. Maybe it's a short walk without your phone. Maybe it's just a few deep breaths before starting a new task. These small practices can do more than calm your mind. They can build your resilience, sharpen your focus, and deepen your connection to purpose. What it looks and feels like. Let's take a moment to imagine what productivity with purpose actually looks and feels like. After all the reflection and awareness we've talked about, you might be wondering, okay, but what does this look like in real life? How do you move from simply being busy to being productive in a way that truly matters, in a way that aligns with your values and your inner compass? First, productivity with purpose is less about doing more and more about doing what matters. It's about learning to focus your energy where it truly counts, cutting through the noise of endless tasks, distractions, and urgent requests that don't actually serve your goals or your well-being. It's the difference between spinning your wheels in a crowded parking lot and driving steadily toward a clear destination. You might not be juggling 10 things at once, but the few things you are working on are meaningful, manageable, and aligned with your bigger picture. Example 1. Maria, the reformed multitasker. Imagine a professional, let's call her Maria, who used to say yes to every meeting and every project that came her way. She was always busy, always exhausted, but deep down she felt like she had to prove herself. After some reflection and a bit of practice listening to her inner voice, Maria started making different choices. She began saying no to meetings that didn't need her input and focused instead on projects that truly connected with her values, projects that helped her team grow or made a real difference for her clients. By cutting out unnecessary commitments, Maria wasn't just less busy, she was more productive. She worked smarter, not harder. And because she focused her energy on fewer, higher quality tasks, her results improved, and so did her peace of mind. Example 2. The purposeful language learner. Now, think of someone learning a new skill, like a language. Many of you listening to this podcast can probably relate. Instead of cramming for hours every day and burning out, they choose intentional learning. Maybe they spend focused time on topics that genuinely interest them, watching movies, reading articles, or having conversations about things they care about. Learning becomes meaningful, not mechanical. It's no longer just another item on the to-do list. It's about quality over quantity, purpose over pressure. The role of rest, reflection, and creativity. Productivity with purpose also means making space for creativity and reflection. It's easy to think of productivity as ticking boxes or meeting deadlines. But the most meaningful progress often happens when we slow down, when we allow ourselves time to think deeply, explore new ideas, or simply rest and recharge. When we give ourselves permission to pause, we return to our work with fresh energy and new perspective. That kind of intentional rest isn't laziness, it's a crucial part of sustainable productivity. The feeling of alignment. Here's something worth noticing. When productivity is driven by purpose, it feels completely different from busyness. Instead of stress and exhaustion, there's clarity and calm. Instead of rushing, there's focus. Instead of fragmentation, there's flow. It's like moving with the current of a river instead of fighting against it. The energy feels natural, grounded, and deeply rewarding. Redefining success. This shift also changes how we define success. Instead of measuring progress by how many hours we work or how many tasks we check off, we begin to measure it by how aligned our actions are with our values and goals. We start to celebrate the quality of our work and the meaning behind it, not just the quantity. A daily practice of intention. Of course, making this transformation isn't always easy. It requires conscious choices, the courage to say no, the discipline to focus, and the patience to let change unfold gradually. But it's a journey worth taking. Because when you begin to see productivity as a form of intentional living, you gain more than efficiency, you gain a deeper connection to your own life and work. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by your to-do list or the endless pace of modern life, pause and ask yourself, am I focusing on what really matters? Am I cutting through the noise to make space for what brings value and meaning? Am I working smarter, not just harder? These simple questions can help you pause, reflect, and realign your efforts. In the end, productivity with purpose isn't about perfection or doing everything. It's about being intentional, aligned, and connected to your inner compass. From busy to balanced, strategies for alignment. It's about making choices that honor your time, your energy, and your values so that the busyness of life slowly transforms into meaningful, fulfilling action. Now that we've explored what productivity with purpose feels like, let's talk about how to actually live it, how to move from being busy to being balanced. Because balance doesn't happen by accident. It's not something you achieve once and then keep forever. It's an ongoing process, a cycle of reflection, adjustment, and self-compassion. You don't need to do it perfectly, you just need to do it consciously. 1. Make reflection a regular practice. A powerful first step is to build regular moments of reflection into your life. And these don't have to be long or complicated. Even just 5 or 10 minutes at the end of your day or once a week can make a big difference. You can use that time to ask yourself simple but honest questions like, what did I do today that felt meaningful? Which tasks felt like busy work? Did I act out of habit or out of genuine choice? You might write your answers down in a notebook, type them on your phone, or simply think them through in silence. This small act helps you see patterns, both positive and negative, in how you spend your time and energy. Reflection is like holding a mirror up to your day. It helps you see where you're aligned and where you're drifting off course. 2. Practice resilience, the gentle kind. Another essential skill for balance is resilience, but not the kind that just means keep pushing. Real resilience means being able to pause, reflect, and adjust without guilt or harsh self-criticism. It's completely normal to slip back into old habits or get caught up in busyness again. Instead of blaming yourself, think of these moments as opportunities to learn. Every time you notice yourself drifting, you can gently steer back, like a sailor adjusting the direction of a boat. You don't need to control the wind or the waves. You just need to keep adjusting your sails. Each time you do, you get better at navigating. 3. Try weekly check-ins. Another practical and powerful strategy is to have weekly check-ins with yourself. You can make it a simple Sunday evening ritual or a quiet moment on Friday afternoon, whatever fits your rhythm. During this time, look ahead at the coming week and ask yourself, which activities truly align with my priorities? Where can I say no or delegate something? Where do I need time for rest, creativity, or connection? This short review helps you design your week on purpose instead of just reacting to what comes your way. It's a way of reminding yourself that your calendar should reflect your values, not just other people's demands. 4. Use time blocking with intention. One of the most effective tools for creating balance is time blocking. That means setting aside specific chunks of time for focused work, rest, or personal activities. But here's the key: time blocking isn't just about squeezing more work into your schedule. It's about organizing your time around what matters most to you. If creativity is important to you, block out time for brainstorming or exploring new ideas, even if there's no immediate result. If connection with loved ones matters, schedule phone-free dinners or walks with friends. If personal growth inspires you, reserve quiet time for reading or reflection. When you plan your time this way, your routine becomes an expression of your values. Your days start to look like your priorities, and that's real productivity. 5. Stay flexible and practice pausing. Of course, life doesn't always go according to plan. Unexpected things happen. Schedules change. Emergencies pop up. That's where flexibility comes in. Balance isn't about controlling every detail. It's about adapting with awareness. One small but powerful habit that helps with this is pausing before reacting. When something unexpected happens, take just a few deep breaths before you respond. That pause gives you a moment to choose your next step consciously instead of reacting automatically. It's a small act, but it can change the tone of your whole day. 6. Build awareness of habit versus intention. Here's a question to reflect on. How much of your daily behavior is driven by conscious intention and how much by habit? This isn't about judgment or guilt. It's about awareness. Most of what we do each day runs on autopilot, routines, reactions, even the way we think about time and success. When we start noticing those patterns, we create the possibility of choice. We can pause and ask, is this how I want to spend my energy? Does this decision support the kind of life I want to build? And even if the answer is not yet, that awareness itself is the beginning of change. Finding balance isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about making small, steady choices that reflect who you are and what matters most. Over time, those choices add up. They turn ordinary days into meaningful ones. And they help you transform not just what you do, but who you become, someone living with clarity, calm, and purpose. Habits, balance, and cultural dimensions of productivity and purpose. Habits are powerful. They help us move through life efficiently, sometimes even without thinking. But while habits can be helpful, they can also keep us stuck in old patterns that no longer serve who we are or who we want to become. By noticing when habits take over, you create the chance to pause and choose differently. That simple awareness, the moment you realize, I don't have to do it this way, is the beginning of real change. As you start to use the strategies we've talked about, reflection, time blocking, mindful pauses, you may notice that your sense of balance begins to shift. It won't be perfect, and it doesn't need to be. Balance isn't a finish line you cross. It's something you keep creating day by day. It's about listening to yourself, making intentional choices, and staying flexible enough to adjust when life changes. When you approach productivity this way, it becomes more sustainable, not just something that supports your goals, but something that supports your well-being too. Remember, moving from busyness to balance is a journey, not a destination. Every small, conscious step, a 5-minute reflection, setting a healthy boundary, or taking a mindful breath before making a decision, moves you closer to a more grounded and meaningful life. And these small steps add up. Over time, they transform how you relate to your work, your time, and even yourself. Cultural dimensions of productivity and purpose. Now, let's take a wider view. Our ideas about productivity and purpose don't come from nowhere. They're shaped by the cultures we grow up in, the values passed down to us, and the social expectations that surround us. The culture you live in influences not only how you define success, but also how you measure worth, time, and purpose. Western perspectives. In many Western cultures, productivity is often tied to measurable output, how much we get done, how fast we work, or what we achieve. There's a common saying, time is money. Work culture often encourages people to maximize every moment, to stay ambitious, to keep moving forward. Phrases like hustle, grind, and work smarter, not harder have become mantras of success. This mindset can be motivating, It pushes innovation and achievement, but it can also lead to overwork, stress, and a loss of balance. Rest and reflection can start to feel like wasted time, when in truth, they're essential to creativity and well-being. Non-Western perspectives. In contrast, many non-Western traditions view productivity in a broader and more interconnected way. For example, in parts of Asia influenced by Confucianism or Taoism, there is often a strong focus on balance, harmony, and community. Productivity isn't just about personal output, it's about contributing to the group, maintaining harmony, and living in alignment with nature's rhythms. In these perspectives, slowing down isn't laziness, it's wisdom. Rest, patience, and reflection are seen as essential parts of a meaningful, purposeful life. Similarly, many indigenous cultures around the world emphasize a holistic relationship between work, nature, and spirituality. Productivity isn't defined only by material success, but by how we care for the land, honor our ancestors, and support our communities. Work becomes a way of staying connected to others, to the earth, and to something greater than ourselves. Blending cultural influences. Of course, these perspectives aren't black and white. In today's global world, most of us live at the crossroads of multiple cultures. You might value the Western drive for achievement and the Eastern sense of harmony. You might believe in community, but also in personal ambition. This blend can create a rich and unique understanding of what productivity and purpose mean to you. Personal reflection. So, how can you use this awareness in your own life? Start by asking yourself, how does my culture define productivity and success? What messages about purpose or worth did I grow up hearing? Which of these ideas feel true for me, and which ones no longer fit? Reflecting on these questions helps you separate what you've inherited from what you truly believe. When you understand this difference, you can begin to shape a definition of productivity that feels more authentic and aligned with your values. For example, if you grew up in a culture that celebrates constant busyness, you might challenge that idea by valuing rest, creativity, or connection. Or if your cultural roots emphasize community, you might choose to bring more collaboration and care into your professional life. By doing this, you're not rejecting your culture, you're expanding it. You're making room for a version of productivity that honors both where you come from and who you're becoming. Reflecting on these cultural dimensions can deepen your appreciation for diversity, resilience, and the many ways people find meaning in their work and lives. And as you continue this journey, you might discover that true productivity isn't just about what you do, but about how deeply aligned your actions are with the values and stories that shape you. It reminds us that productivity and purpose are not fixed ideas, but living, evolving concepts shaped by our history, our traditions, and our personal experiences. This perspective invites us to practice empathy and curiosity, both toward ourselves and toward others who may see the world through different lenses. When we understand the cultural influences that shape how we think about work and success, we open the door to greater freedom and authenticity. We begin to see that there isn't one single right way to be productive or purposeful. Instead, we can draw strength from many traditions while honoring what feels true for us individually. This kind of cultural awareness becomes more than just knowledge. It becomes a tool for intentional living, for respecting the rich complexity of human experience. As you reflect on your own life, consider this gentle question. How does your culture define productivity, and where do you agree or disagree with that definition? There are no right or wrong answers here, only opportunities to explore and deepen your understanding of yourself and the world around you. From purpose to presence. As we come to the end of this episode, let's take a quiet moment together, not just to pause physically, but to pause mentally and emotionally. Throughout our conversation, we've explored many layers of what it means to live and work with purpose, why busyness without meaning can drain us, and how we can begin to realign our actions with what truly matters. Now, I invite you to simply be present with where you are, to take a breath, to notice that you've spent this time reflecting, learning, and connecting, and that's already something meaningful. In our fast-paced world, it's so easy to rush from one thing to the next task, the next goal, the next distraction. But true productivity, the kind that feels fulfilling rather than exhausting, isn't about doing more. It's about being here, showing up fully for yourself and your intentions, even if imperfectly. Purpose doesn't require you to have everything figured out. It doesn't demand constant success or flawless focus. Instead, it invites you to be curious, compassionate, and patient with yourself as you move through life's uncertainties. Think of purpose not as a distant destination, but as a gentle compass, one that guides your daily steps. Sometimes it whispers softly during a mindful pause. Other times it shows up boldly in a moment of clarity. However it appears, purpose grows when we make space for it, space to listen, to reflect, and to act with intention. You might ask yourself, what's one small thing I could start doing or stop doing that would bring me closer to my purpose? It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's turning off your phone for an hour, focusing on a single task instead of multitasking, journaling once a week, or saying no to something that doesn't align with your values. Small, consistent actions can create profound shifts over time. And remember, moving from busyness to purpose isn't about adding more to your to-do list. Often, it's about letting go of habits, beliefs, or expectations that no longer serve you. It's about reclaiming your time, your focus, and your attention for what truly nourishes your mind and soul. A final thought. Before we close, I want to thank you for spending this time here with me on Super English Talks. Your willingness to explore deeper questions in English through reflection and emotion is itself an act of growth. You've not only practiced language, you've practiced awareness, curiosity, and connection. And maybe that's what purposeful productivity really is, not just mastering tasks or tools, but learning how to bring your whole self into what you do. So as you move forward, take this with you. You don't have to do everything. You just have to do what matters, with attention, with care, and with heart. Learning a language is about much more than grammar or vocabulary. It's about opening your mind, connecting with yourself and others, and discovering new ways to express your thoughts and feelings. As you move forward from this episode, I invite you to carry this idea of pause and presence into your daily life. When life feels noisy, busy, or overwhelming, come back to that quiet inner space where purpose lives. Let it be a steady, gentle light, guiding your choices, giving meaning to your actions, and helping you move through the world with intention. I'm excited to continue this journey with you in future episodes, exploring not just language, but ideas, reflection, and the art of living thoughtfully. Until then, take care of yourself. Listen deeply to your inner voice. Remember, purpose doesn't demand perfection. It only asks for presence. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Your attention and willingness to reflect make this space truly meaningful. Take care, stay intentional, and keep living with purpose.